Hey Tegan, what's in the bag? It's the show where I come home from the comic book store and we look through my bag of comics because, say it with me, friends, I buy too many comic books. If you like this show, if you like any of my shows, please check out the Patreon. I got years worth of writing there for you to download immediately. I got tons of other videos on this channel as well, including, as of now, there should be a new video where I read through the entire first volume of Fist of the North Star, which, let me tell you something. That right there, that's a hoot and a half, friend. But now, let us look at Marvel's Facsimile edition of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, issue 8. One of the most significant comics of its era, if not the entire, history of Marvel Comics. Not even the first appearance of the costume. The costume first appeared in the issue of Amazing Spider-Man, where Spider-Man came back from the Secret Wars, which was 8 months prior to this. So the bulk of the alien costume saga had already played out in Amazing Spider-Man by the time this costume was introduced in Secret Wars. So at the time, if you were a kid reading these comics, this issue would have been unavoidably an anticlimax, because you already knew more or less what was going to play out, because the Black Costume saga took less time than the original Secret Wars. By the time he goes back to Earth in issue 12, which, is 12 months prior in Amazing Spider-Man, this story is more or less played out. And it would be played out because the fact is, although it shouldn't surprise you if you don't know, people did not like the black costume at the time. Although it had its defenders, certainly, because they used it for a few years. The immediate reaction was, well, you can guess. What have you done? What have you done? And in hindsight, yeah, of course, they were never going to change his costume for longer than a year or a year and a half, not in the middle of the 80s. And sure enough, he got rid of the alien costume, still used the black costume on and off for a while. But then it wasn't until, famously, Amazing Spider-Man 300, not Todd McFarlane's first issue, but his first big issue, the landmark anniversary, when they came back and they gave this costume to another character, which meant he really would not be wearing it very often in his own book. And sure enough, he has worn the black costume again a couple times, but only a couple times. And we're looking at almost 40 years here since he originally got rid of it. Anyway, the upshot of this story is that I did not buy this comic book off the newsstands originally. I bought it at a con where I was putting together a run of the original Secret Wars. Not that long after I really started to get into Marvel Comics as a whole. That was one of the first big things that I focused on. So I put together a run at the show. And it galls me that I had to pay I think $2 more for this. $2 more than the rest of the run, which in hindsight, that's life. Anyway, we got a special guest today in the studio. I'm very excited to share with you. Yeah, that's right. It was right here. So why not go for it? Yep. Now, this comic was in a little bit better shape when I bought it. I read it a number of times. I loaned it out to a few people who I, recommended the Secret Wars to. So it was a well-loved comic. I think my dad even read this comic. But it's still in decent shape with mostly, looks like creamy off-white pages. So can't ask for more creamy off-white in this hobby. Anyway, you see the color here, and you can always tell the color on the reprints is always a little bit more vivid. Because even though this is faded a bit, because, I mean, a tiny bit, still it was not this bright red. There was a little bit of peach in it here. And you notice it's just a bit shorter. Tiny bit shorter. Okay, so this is how long ago this was. Mario was still hopping around pipes looking for crabs. This is the original Mario Brothers. It's not Super. It's... Thank you. Anyway, as I was saying, this is the original Mario Brothers. This is the one that the Super would be appended after for. So, yeah, I want to see that side by side. You know, sometimes with these ad pages, they reprint them as if they've been scanned. It's, what are you doing? See, now this I just bought today, but if you sit on this comic, I'll be very unhappy. This comic is putting you through college, young man. I'm trying to communicate to him that his attitude isn't appreciated. Does he listen to me? Anyway, yeah. I cherish these facsimiles because they do let you have reading copies of some legitimately valuable and scarce stories, important stories, significant stories. I think it can't but be good for the historical literacy of the medium to actually see these books in as close to, the original context as possible, because I know not everyone, has the insatiable thirst to go back issue shopping. But history is important. Context is important. I am still resolutely a historicist, all the way from graduate school. So I really appreciate the history. But nevertheless, it galls me how this replica, which is supposedly created to, contemporary standards, it's printed too bright. The paper is too bright. They're still, on this stuff, they're still using this super glossy, thick stock, when, frankly, straight up, DC's using a better stock on their facsimiles. The Archie facsimile that we looked at last week was on better stock. If you print a comic if you reprint a comic from after like 2000, the stock isn't going to matter that much because it was all more or less printed on shiny stock since the turn of the millennium. But anything before then, and you can just see in an instant how less bright, how much more nuanced this color is in the original newsprint. Now, at this point in the story, everything's just kind of falling apart because the war, such as it is, it's coming to an end. The heroes are routing the villains because essentially what's been happening is that the plot of the original Secret Wars is that there's supposed to be a war between the superheroes and the supervillains. The only reason the supervillains could stand a chance in this situation is they got Dr. Doom leading them. Dr. Doom really has no interest in leading the rest of the supervillains. What he is there for is to manipulate the situation to be able to steal the Beyonder's power. That's always and forever all he cares about doing in any of the Secret Wars. It's like, ringing a dinner bell for Victor Von Doom. My goodness, though. I have been buying these facsimiles because I don't always want to get the expensive comics out. I don't always buy the facsimiles of comics I already own. But yes, another reading copy of the original Secret Wars. And if we ever do the Secret Wars on the TikTok, I don't actually know whether or not I would want to do the facsimile or the newsprint. Probably the newsprint, because it does look better. Even here on this very strange, I always wondered what Richard Pryor was doing on Saturday mornings, with Muppets no less. I think those are Muppets. This was the year of Dungeons and Dragons, and they were just getting started with Muppet Babies. But man, that is a hard ad to print on newsprint. Still looks better on the newsprint than on the shiny. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. It looks better. What the paper is, and this is maybe not completely off-white, but certainly a more off-white than this bright white. I mean, they could improve these, even with a shiny stock, even if it just wasn't shiny white, because you see it, the color loses just a tiny bit of value, which sounds bad. We don't want things to lose value, but you want the color on the comic book page to settle, to not have 100% value, because see, this is the version of the older comics that we get if you read them on Marvel Unlimited, which, it's convenient. I do it for reference, certainly. If I just want to sit down and read, 20 issues I don't have on hand, it's perfect. But aesthetically, I know it's the inferior experience. Most, not all, but most of the reprint volumes for older books are also going to be printed. Oh, this is one of the best scenes. Hawkeye's going up against, is that Pile Driver. And he's like, what are you going to do, man? All you got is arrows. What are you going to do? Shoot me with an arrow? And Hawkeye, all he has left is actual pointy arrows, because all his trick arrows are gone. He has had to make real arrows out of, reeds, I believe. He's like, okay, I will shoot you. And it's like, yeah, he's stronger and sturdier than the next guy, but an arrow fired by a world-class marksman, that goes into his shoulder like a high-caliber bullet. Lordy, I'm wounded. That's Hawkeye at his best right there. I mean, just look at this. This is essentially, the exact same comic book scene. And yet, I know this is when I sound like an old person. It sounds better on the non-glossy stock, where the color prints slightly down in value. And at this point, one of the interesting things about Secret Wars is that it was really something that was done in a hurry by a lot of people, and especially in the later part of the run, you start to see panels that look like maybe they were inked by. We got 3 inkers on here: John Beatty, Jack Abel, Mike Esposito. Later on, you're going to have their uncredited Art Adams panels. It was an all hands on deck situation around the offices. Kids today can't know just how big of a deal Saturday morning cartoons were. Nowadays, you have almost certainly in your hand right now, possibly even where you're watching this, you can watch any cartoon you want at whim. That ain't how it was until shockingly recently in human history. Up until still the 2000s. We were at the whims of what the television gave us. And if you really liked cartoons, meaning if you were a kid, then you look forward to Saturday mornings, because that's when they put on the best cartoons. They put on cartoons during the normal days, in the early morning and in the afternoon. But Saturday morning, those were special. And usually, I remember, even though I was still very young, by, the real zenith here of the Saturday morning lineup, I remember what it was like. You'd watch one thing on one channel, and then because you didn't like the next cartoon, you'd flip over to NBC or whatever. It was, you had to take it seriously, putting together the cartoons you would watch for the next year. Yeah, one character who really gets a short shrift in this, though, Monica Rambeau. Just about every member of the Avengers team and the X-Men gets something. She does a couple things. She runs errands for Captain America at a couple points throughout the series. I'm sorry, this just doesn't. If you don't see it, man, I'm sorry. Another thing, this printing is a lot more forgiving for the conditions of how these comic books were produced. This reproduces everything perfectly from, the original plates. This is very flattering to, comics that were maybe inked quickly. Yeah, so this is towards the end of the actual war between the superheroes and the supervillains. Titania, she's only existed for like 2 issues, I think. 2 or 3 issues, because she's created by Doctor Doom during the Secret Wars, along with Volcano. Didn't go on to be quite as famous. Actually, in hindsight, the fact that she ended up being used, she's been used consistently and in some actual weighty roles at many points over her history. And she graduated to being an arch-villain, an actual arch-villain for a name hero, She-Hulk. That's one of the series' bigger legacies right there. Ultron just sort of chumps around for this series. There are a couple characters like Ultron, Claw, who are working at diminished capacity. Or, Ultron would have maybe been slightly harder to kill than, just Johnny's Nova Flame. But I want to say, yeah, he doesn't have his adamantium body. Oh, wait, he does. I couldn't melt his adamantium hide. But I guess something non-adamantium inside must have overheated. But he's wasted. And Captain America gets through finally to Doctor Doom. But Doctor Doom, he has been demolished. He has already snuck onto Galactus's world ship to steal something. And he has yet to act on stealing the Beyonder's power, which he's only going to do after Galactus. That's the plot of Secret Wars. You should read it. Don't listen to people who tell you that Secret Wars isn't good. I know there are some people who will tell you it is not a good story. Do not listen to them. It is fantastic. This is the series. The big impact this had on the X-Men was that it finally broke up Colossus and Kitty Pryde, because Colossus came to this world and basically falls in love with this girl who is in love with Johnny Storm. So, there gets to be a bit of a love triangle on this alien planet with this fetching alien healer lass. And, but the thing is, people miraculously heal from, I think people thought that Janet was dead. Then she comes back because it's just the magic wish power of Battle World. And then right at the very end, as I was saying, here, oh, look, over there. Mr. Fantastic is doing some repairs to Iron Man's armor. This is when James Rhodes was in the armor. So Tony Stark did not go to the Secret Wars. It was James Rhodes, and that's why Mr. Fantastic had to do some repairs on Iron Man's armor. He added on some alien parts, which were stuck to Iron Man for like an issue when he came back to Earth. He got rid of them, and then years later they tried to kill Quasar because I think Mark Gruenwald was, poking a little fun at the newfound popularity of Venom by going back to another, it wasn't really a hanging thread from the Secret Wars, but anyway, here's the main event. This is why this comic is worth as much money as it is. Spider-Man, as is well known, he goes into the room where Thor and the Hulk have got new clothes. Although, why the Hulk didn't get new shorts, I don't know. He could have just got shorts that weren't ripped. Why didn't he do that? That just occurs to me. So he goes in there and no, he finds the machine that produces, oh, wait a minute. I was going to say Clintar. Apparently, is Clintar not politically correct or something? That's not the name. Clintar was the name of the prison, I believe. So, now, the one thing you can say for this format is that, yes, you can see on the original, my copy, the heavy ink of the inside cover has bled through a little bit. Yeah. But, straight up, that makes it look cooler. It does. It does. It totally does. Whereas this like pure, like 100% value magenta is really hard on the eyes in a way that this page isn't. Whereas this looks like Michael Golden threw up. And then the main event gets started here in the very next panel because they suddenly get a telepathic alert from Professor Charles Xavier because the X-Men, they've been watching Galactus, and suddenly they see he's starting to eat the planet. Y'all need to come running. And from there, the last 4 issues of the series, really once the main Secret Wars is over, it just becomes escalating battles between the superheroes and Galactus, Doctor Doom and Galactus, Galactus and the Beyonder, and then Doctor Doom versus the Beyonder, and then Doctor Doom versus himself. It's, oh man, I know that people will tell you it is not a good series. They are not your friends. They do not have your best interests at heart if they are saying that to you. Okay, here's something I got, because I've been picking up the occasional, Boom, here we go. Boom is doing something right. I look at the shelf, at what's interesting, at artists that look like people I want to know, writers who are doing interesting work, and Boom is a name that comes up more and more often. And this Boom box, I don't know precisely what the difference is. I think maybe stuff that could be aimed towards, like, YA, not younger, but as opposed to the rest of their line. This, basically, I saw some promo stuff for this. Didn't really interest me because I didn't know anything. The promo stuff was just like, showing off the art. But then I think I saw the creator or a critic saying essentially like the real hook here is that it's Yuri motorcycle jousting. Yuri motorcycle jousting. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know like what I saw before, but that's a good hook. That's a good hook for a story. Script and art by the same person, which is also interesting. This is a writer-artist combo, and it's always interesting to see when those pop up. Colors by Eleonora Bruni, with colors assist by Freddie Tanto. Letters and logo by Becca Carey. And I think this is the A cover. So, Fell Hound, I don't know. Is she an online person? I don't know. I know I've seen the name. So, yeah. Interesting. Clearly native digital, I think. I like this establishing work here. Oh, wow. Someone wearing a mask. Not something you see in any fiction in 2024. So yeah, this looks fun. This looks like something I might actually quite enjoy when it's done. This is commercial material. This is a comic in a saleable genre. It looks like it's some sort of school-based sports competition with a weird, X Games motorcycle jousting hook. This definitely seems like something that if you were to get it into the right hands, could hit with an audience. Oh, now we're on to the actual sport itself. Okay, this is fun. Switching up the color, moving on to this deep red from the pastels. Uh-oh. Something's happening. And it's, well, this is better than a text page. This is actually telling some story here with these panel design. Yeah, so far, one issue, I think I'm going to read it maybe a little bit closer, but yeah, I might be on board for that one. That looks like it might be fun. Yeah, this was the other one that I've tried recently, this I Heart Skull Crusher thing. Another, kids playing a weird, vaguely sci-fi sport thing that, seems like something that should really hit if it was able to escape the containment of, direct market comics. And of course, I'm really happy to see that this Giant Days material is staying in print. These look like really nice editions. They ended up doing quite a bit, quite a long run of this Giant Days book. Now, he hasn't been able to launch another ongoing since then. Maybe at some point he should try that again, because this seems like it had a nice run. This stuff will be in print for a while with editions like these. Hopefully, it'll be a window to bring new fans to the Tackleford characters. I've been following the Tackleford stuff since the turn of the century. Not since the very beginning. Not since the days where he was doing the Seinfeld riffs. But a little bit after that, when it was Tessa and Rachel. That's how far back I go with John Allison. I'm just happy to see him still around, still working. He's one of my favorite cartoonists currently working. And here's that I Heart Skull Crushers thing with Josie Campbell, Alessio Zano. Really a attractively colored book. And this looks fun. I don't know if the yaoi fencers are quite my bag. All right, so that's fun. Yes, we looked at the first issue of this last week because apparently I did not know this when I committed in my brain to buying this new Gotham City Sirens 4-issue series. I like that this series has a little bit of artistic pedigree with, Guillaume March in the past. I want to see if they can do anything interesting with it now. I like Leah Williams. But weekly, I don't know. In the comic book industry, weekly, not always. But when an isolated event is solicited as weekly, sometimes it's taking the dog out. If you recall, Age of Ultron, not the movie, but the book, that ended up shipping weekly or near weekly. And we understood why they had pushed that one out in a rush. Believe me, we understood. So I don't know. Is this a dog as well? I liked the first issue on the flip through. Again, punchline, maybe not my favorite character, maybe not your favorite character, but someone at DC likes this character. Leah Williams, Daniel Hillyard, Triona Farrell. So yeah, I generally think that they get good artists to draw, their Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy and Catwoman books. You get older, and you realize there's nothing stopping you from buying more comic books with Catwoman in them. This is just free life advice from me to you. You can buy as many Catwoman comic books as you want. It might even be good for your blood pressure. This is interesting. I think this is a different artist from the original book. I think this is a different artist from the first issue. Interesting. Oh, and they're still doing this absolute power jazz. It didn't do anything from me, but are people digging it? I don't know. My feel was that Blood Hunt started strong, sort of ended weakly. What I saw, people seemed to be coming away with the idea that it didn't really have an ending so much as just, leading to something else. It seems kind of extrinsic. This one I don't think people were excited about, but maybe people were a little bit more excited about once they read the first couple issues. That's just totally my feel going on. What little chatter I see, I'm not paying that much attention. But I don't know. Again, like I say, using Amanda Waller is just a generic, government-themed heavy, as opposed to, a nuanced anti-hero, which, is probably asking for a bit too much in this day and age. Yeah, I can just read comics where these characters are sassing each other out. I'd be happy with that. It frankly takes a lot to make me disappointed with a Harley Quinn comic book. I'm just a simple person like that. And now they're dressed like cowgirls. Poison Ivy, Catwoman, and Harley Quinn have to dress like cowgirls to solve a crime. Oh. Friends. What meets my eyes here? 0 Hour 30th Anniversary Special. Celebrate 30 years of the iconic DC event with a can't-miss 90s-fueled oversized issue. All right, straight up. I am calling bullshit. Because they had 30th anniversary specials for the death and the return of Superman. They did not give us a 30th anniversary special for Bloodlines. No one liked 0 Hour. And you're giving it a 30th anniversary special. And yet, I read every single Bloodlines crossover this last year. I think for that, I deserve a Bloodlines 30th anniversary special. Don't you think so, ladies and gentlemen? I ask you. I want to see my dudes again. No one gives any respect to the parasites. They will sell you a comic book with the Ray in it before they will sell you more comics with the 90s parasites. Although there's Jack Knight Starman, Connor Hawke, who actually started a little bit like a year after 0 Hour, if I recall correctly. He was introduced right after this, but he didn't take over as Green Lantern for a little while till after he'd been introduced, and they killed Oliver Queen, and it was the least convincing death of all time. It could have been undone in like 2 panels. Like, oh, you got out of the plane before it blew up. But no, Kevin Smith comes and says he really is dead and we're going to go to heaven, and make things so much more difficult than they had to be. You could have brought back Batman in 2 panels. Gardner Fox could have brought that man back in 1 panel. Kevin Smith needed like 10 issues. Dan Jurgens, Ron Mars writing for, well, they're getting Dan Jurgens, Daryl Banks, Kelly Jones, Tom Grummett, Jerry Ordway, Paul Peltier, Howard Porter. Throw in some Tom Mandrake on the Spectre and, I hate to say it, friends. I don't want to really want this. I don't want to really want this. I want to be impermeable to its charms. Oh yeah, we're supposed to be reading the Gotham City Sirens. Yes. And they're dressing up, or no, they're undressing cowboy henchmen and tying them up. Friends. Oh, and this thing. Let's make the Penguin a spy. I know I shouldn't be giving away free ideas, but friends, someday someone like you or me is just going to walk through the door at DC and point out, like, how long has it been since you just put this beautiful man in a tuxedo, gave him trick umbrellas, and told him to try to kill Batman? How long has it been since we've actually seen our boy in his glory? He's been a small business owner. I think he's been back in politics. He's been mobbed up. Now he's a spy. Everything but bird-themed crimes that are a roundabout way of tricking Batman into a death trap. One of these days, I tell you, one of these days, no one is going to do it. I can say that, knowing full well, no one is going to do it until, I become famous enough that I can pitch the real Penguin. Not holding our breath on that one. So, yeah, they're in a truck. I think they're trying to sneak in to do something or other. Oh, and this Jenny Sparks. Why? No. I'm just saying that. I don't know if I represent you, but I know I represent a legitimate demographic when I say, why? It didn't have to be like this. It's a trap. Yes. When I see that ad for Tom King, Jenny Sparks, yeah, there you go. Own Watchmen, Chapter 1. But who needs more Watchmen? Really? Just who needs more Watchmen? So, yeah, they wake up in a cell. Apparently they're being heated to death. Something's burning. It's us. All right. And the variant swimsuit covers. Well, I got Guillaume Marsh to do Wonder Woman. Mirka Andolfo. Belen Ortega doing Nightwing. They gave Nightwing, baggy shorts. They give Batman a banana hammock. They give Nightwing baggy shorts. They don't know their audience, I don't think. All right. They not even McFarlane Toys can make Ray Palmer not look hangdog. Look at that man. You can just see the waves of depression cascading off him. We read that one issue of the Atom, the special from '93 that Steve Dillon drew. We read that on the TikTok a while back. I love that comic. It's a great comic, but it's a perfect snapshot of why this man is just really depressing. Just extraordinarily depressing. And one more, we'll just flip through this. I know nothing about this, but I've been picking it up because it's being drawn, although I don't think this is it. I think they were out of the A cover, so I just picked this one up because it wasn't bad. But the series is being drawn by Hayden Sherman. And Hayden Sherman is someone I've really gotten onto recently. Just last week on the TikTok, we read the first issue of his Western Above Snakes. One of the most dynamic uses of color I've seen in a comic book. Can't recommend it highly enough. So, yeah, anything you see his name on, Hayden Sherman, is at least worth a flip through. And this is some horror thing about, I think there's spelunking into the interior of the earth, and they keep finding caves that look like teeth, that type of thing. Kind of similar to, there's a Paul Chadwick series that from around the turn of the century called, was it Beneath the Earth? Under the Earth? I think Beneath the Earth. We'll be reading it on the TikTok one of these days, but it's a Paul Chadwick sci-fi story. Not related to concrete at all, but explorers in an underground world. And it kind of has a similar vibe to this, because it's just going underground, and instead of finding, monsters living or underground civilizations, they just find weird things that defy description, like this weird moose, this tunnel moose. This thing is cool. Oh man. And see, what was I telling you about this Hayden Sherman fella? Yeah, straight up. I'm giving my recommendation to anything you see with Hayden Sherman's name on it. Look at this. They're going into the world, but it looks like it's drawn like this cardiopulmonary system. Oh, and you turn that page and you get that brilliant yellow. Folks, that is a page turn right there. And it looks like we're going into giant lungs. My goodness. This is nice. You have to admit, I don't think that this is a series that a lot of people are picking up on, because I haven't seen anyone else mentioning it. But this is a nice looking comic, folks, right here. This Hayden Sherman needs to be on your radar. Is it just that he needs to have a big run on a Batman book, preferably a prestige Batman book written by someone who, has been in the industry for a couple of decades? Is that just the formula to, announce a talent these days? I mean, since like 1986. That's how you do a text page right there. That's nice. Everything about that. See, I'm waiting to finish this one, because, again, this is one that I may very well do on the TikTok, because it looks so nice. I know that not a lot of people are probably looking at it. And we did that Dear Editor series a few weeks ago. I loved that one. And I didn't see anyone really talking about that one. If anything, I hope I put a few more eyes on it with my TikTok videos. I like to think that I have an eye for these things. Look at this. Look at how nice this looks. What's this? Beyond the Pale. The truth will be revealed in this all-new eldritch horror set in the Vietnam War. Interesting. Christopher M. Garrett, artist Tomas Ira. Might be interesting. I don't know. I want to flip through it. What's this? Landry Q. Walker and Justin Greenwood of The Last Siege. I think I've seen it around. What is this? Seance in the Asylum. Clay McLeod Chapman and renowned comics artist Andrea Muddy. Well, there you go. Might be worth a flip through. Not a lot of these books aren't getting a lot of promo, though. I feel like they just had a new Gerard Way book coming out from Dark Horse the other week. And I found out about it like the week it was on stands. Image has been doing some good social media work lately. This Patra series looks like it might be fun. I was looking at something for this. It's James Robinson and Scott Kolins. I think I maybe only saw it because I follow Scott Kolins on the social media. He's definitely someone who's come into his own in recent years. All right, well, that's enough. That's enough comic books for now. Anyway, if you like this show, check out the Patreon. I got tons of writing there, tons of stuff for you to download at your first convenience. Check out the Comics Journal Yearbook Best of 2023. It's got 10 essays by some of the best writers about comics working today on 10 of the best comics from the last year. And it has an essay by yours truly on the subject of Daniel Clowes and his recent masterpiece, Monica. I do daily comic book reviews on TikTok and Instagram. I have a podcast with Claire Napier. It's called Udder Madness. We look at Top Cow Comics. That's Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner, Witchblade, The Darkness, all that good stuff. We just put up a new episode on the Patreon not that long ago about the brand new issue 1 of Witchblade. I should have a new review up at the Journal any day now, hopefully, on the subject of Godzilla. That should be fun. What else? Oh yeah, I think I mentioned before, I just put up a new video on this channel where I read through the first volume of Fist of the North Star, one of my favorite comic books of all time. I had a lot of fun doing it. Maybe you'll have a lot of fun watching it. I don't know. Have a wonderful day.